Well, good morning, everyone, and welcome to Friday morning. It's Stephen Whiteside here from the uptrend.com. In the pre-market this morning, so far stock index futures, gold, and Bitcoin are currently trading higher this morning, while crude oil and natural gas are trading lower. Now, on Friday mornings, I like to print off some weekly charts just to see how the market is doing. And of course, Bitcoin is the big news story this week, and it collapsed it down over 24% on the week so far. Overnight, it was down near $60,000, but has come back in the pre market. We are back at levels we haven't seen since the summer of 2024. Then looking at the price of gold, we are up $144 this week so far. We've got 1 week where we closed above the $5,000 level. The next week, of course, we had that huge move up and quick reversal, and we're still trading and closing below the $5,000 level. We traded all the way down to the lower channel line this week before recovering. Looking at the price of silver, again, we had 1 week where we closed above $100, and we have not been able to head back up this week. And so far, we are down on the week 2.31%. So no major change for silver. Then looking at the price of crude oil, it was an inside week. We're down nearly 3%, while natural gas is down near 20% on the week. Looking at the Canadian market, the TSX Composite Index is having an inside week. We're up just under 0.25%. And we've got energy stocks continuing to move higher, even though the commodities have had a rough week. Then looking at gold stocks, they're down 1.31%, so no major move for the gold sector this week. Financials are pretty steady, still trading in the channel, so we're still on a buy signal here. The S&P 500 is down a little over 2% on the week, sitting on the edge of a weekly sell signal, unlike the NASDAQ, which is down nearly 4% and is currently closing on Thursday below the lower channel line. So that would give us a weekly sell signal if we close around these levels on Friday. Looking at the Russell 2000, we are down on the week, a little over 1.33%, but still nowhere near the lower channel line. Similar situation for semiconductors. They're down nearly 5%, but that is not a big move for semiconductors. And we're still on a buy signal here, so no change expected on Friday night. Looking at the software stocks, we've had a weekly sell signal from back in October, and we're trading down towards the lows from earlier in 2025. So down nearly 12% on the week. Now, the VIX is going in the opposite direction. It's up nearly 25% on the week. Nowhere near the highs from back in late 2025, and certainly nowhere near the highs from the spring of 2025. So the VIX has a little more room to go before it hits resistance. There's no guarantee that that's what's going to happen, but if we're looking for resistance to stop the VIX, we're nowhere near it at the moment. Now, moving from the weekly charts to the daily charts, the VIX continues to rise on the daily charts. There's the S&P 500 VIX, there's the NASDAQ, and there's the Russell 2000. And as you can see, we still have a ways to go before we start hitting resistance at the October and November highs. Now, in after-hours trading, there's a couple of stocks in the news. Amazon gapped lower yesterday during the regular trading session. It's continuing to gap lower after hours, currently trading around $206. Now, Stellantis is also in the news. It's down about 20% in the pre-market. As you can see, we had a little pop in the stock over the past couple of days as investors were anticipating good news. If we go back and look at who's in control, you can see the pros gave up control back here at the end of December. Now compare that to Toyota, which the pros took control in early December and the stocks continued to rise. And then compare that to Tesla, where the pros gave up control at the start of the year and the stock has continued to move lower. Now, looking at the world of Bitcoin, it made new lows yesterday. For this move, it was down nearly 60,000 overnight and has come back $4,000 or $5,000 in the pre-market this morning. That's not really going to change the overall direction of Bitcoin or Ethereum. Of course, all the Bitcoin-related stocks are heading significantly lower. There's MicroStrategy down nearly 17, a little over 17% yesterday. Now, on the other hand, what's working? Well, the bear ETFs for Bitcoin continue to move higher on Thursday. Now, looking at the U.S. stock market trends, starting off with the Dow is still on a buy signal here. The S&P 500 moved down and traded slightly below the January lows, unlike the equal-weighted S&P 500. So the Dow and the equal-weighted S&P 500 still holding up fairly well, unlike the Nasdaq, which broke 600 yesterday and closed below it. So trading below the January and December lows, and of course, the November lows could certainly be a target if we want to continue to move lower from here. The equal weighted NASDAQ has certainly blown through those November lows. And you can see that we had what would be considered a double top up here. And then we put in a lower high. And now we're certainly putting in lower lows. And we're also seeing weakness in the next generation NASDAQ stocks at this time. So there's the Russell 2000. There's the small caps, micro caps, all on sell signals right now. We had an inside day for semiconductors on Thursday. They were down still at the end of the day, 0.25%. Then looking at financials, they're holding up fairly well this week. They're on a buy signal, not really going anywhere. Compare that to the bank stocks, both the U.S. Bank ETF and the regional bank ETF have held up fairly well this week, moving higher. They were slightly lower on Thursday, but certainly no change in trend. Let's finish off with the Canadian market, and we're still looking for the TSX 60 and the Vanguard Canada ETF to trade above last Friday's high. That still hasn't happened. So as we saw earlier when we looked at the weekly chart of the TSX Composite, so far it is an inside week for the Canadian market. Now, what's not working? Well, small caps made a new low for this move on Thursday. Micro caps certainly made a new low for this move on Thursday, down 6.63% on the day. Then we have the energy sector still holding up. It's higher on the week. 2188 has been a significant area of resistance. It's not only a daily target, but also a weekly target. This chart is from last Friday. Then looking at financials, they're just trading in the channel, so holding up fairly well at the moment after generating a sell signal earlier in the month of January. And then bank stocks have come back this week, haven't taken out the previous high from late December. Then looking at gold stocks, still on a sell signal here, down 6% yesterday. Clustering on the 56.25 level if we want to break away from that level. And yes, we closed below it yesterday, but we're still stuck to it. If we start breaking away, then $50 is our next target to the downside. And last up this morning, looking at Canadian technology stocks, we put in a bullish reversal day on Wednesday, followed through to the upside on Thursday, but the pros do not look like they're interested at all in taking control of this sector at this time. Okay, folks, that's all for this morning's presentation. So far, it looks like the market wants to do a little buying on Friday morning. That is not going to change the overall direction of the areas that have been hurt this week. The S&P 500 equal weighted ETF and the Dow still holding up fairly well. Anything software related and Bitcoin related have been crushed this week. Enjoy the rest of your Friday. Enjoy your weekend. If you're a member, we'll be back on Sunday. If you're not a member, we'll be back on Monday morning.
Thanks for tuning in until the very end of today's stock market timing educational video. If you found the content valuable, don't forget to express your support by hitting the like button, leave a comment, sharing with your friends, and subscribing to our channel for more insightful updates. Remember, in the world of stocks, timing is crucial, and following the trend can be your greatest ally. If you would like more information on how we can help you better time the stock market, please visit theyuptrend.com.